Why Linux Mint is the best Linux distribution for beginners, 2026. Imagine buying a new laptop? You turn it on, and instead of seeing Windows, you see something called Linux. Your first question would probably be, what is Linux? You went ahead and did a Google search. Now your second question? Which Linux should I install? Well, after using Linux for years and trying dozens of different Linux distributions, there's one operating system I recommend to almost everyone. Linux Mint. In this video, I'll explain exactly what Linux Mint is, why it's my #1 recommendation, and why it might be the perfect replacement for Windows. Let's get started. What is Linux? Before we talk about Linux Mint, let's answer the obvious question. What exactly is Linux? Linux is an operating system. If you're wondering what an operating system is, it's simply the software that makes your computer usable. It's what lets you browse the internet, watch YouTube, play music, write documents, edit photos, and install applications. Windows is an operating system. macOS is an operating system. And Linux is another operating system. The biggest difference? Linux is completely free. You don't have to buy a license, and anyone can download and use it. Even better, Linux is open source. That means people around the world work together to improve it instead of one company controlling everything. So, what is Linux Mint? Here's where many beginners get confused. Linux isn't just one operating system. There are hundreds of different versions of Linux. These versions are called distributions, or distros for short. Think of it like Android. Samsung phones use Android. Google Pixel phones use Android. OnePlus phones use Android. They're all Android, but each company adds its own style and features. Linux works exactly the same way. Linux Mint is simply one version of Linux. And in my opinion, it's the best version for most people. Why do I recommend Linux Mint? Let's start with the biggest reason. It feels familiar. If you've used Windows before, Linux Mint won't feel strange. You'll see a start menu, a taskbar at the bottom, a clock, volume controls, Wi-Fi settings, desktop shortcuts. Everything is exactly where most people expect it to be. That means you spend less time learning your computer, and more time actually using it. Meet Cinnamon. You may hear people say, install Linux Mint Cinnamon. So, what is Cinnamon? Cinnamon is what's called a desktop environment. Now don't let the name scare you. A desktop environment is simply the way your operating system looks and behaves. It's your start menu, your taskbar, your windows, your settings, everything you click every day. Linux Mint Cinnamon Desktop is clean, modern, easy to understand, and incredibly customizable. That's one of the biggest reasons people love it. Everything is ready from day one. One thing I really appreciate about Linux Mint is that it doesn't make you hunt for basic software. Right after installing it, you already have a web browser, a file manager, a PDF reader, a media player, Office applications, and several useful system tools. For many people, that's everything they need. Installing applications couldn't be easier. Let's say you want to install VLC, or Spotify, or Steam, or GIMP. You don't need to search random websites. Linux Mint includes something called the Software Manager. Think of it like the Play Store on Android or the App Store on an iPhone. Open it. Search for the app. Click Install. That's it. It's simple, safe, and beginner-friendly. It helps protect your computer. Another thing Linux Mint does really well is updates. Every operating system receives updates. Updates fix security issues, repair bugs, and improve performance. Linux Mint makes these updates incredibly easy to understand. There's no pressure. No confusing messages. No forced restarts while you're in the middle of your work. You decide when to update. One feature that can save your day. Now here's one of my favorite features. It's called Timeshift. Imagine your computer suddenly stops working after an update. Normally, that would be a nightmare. But Timeshift creates snapshots of your system. Think of them like restore points or a save game in a video game. If something goes wrong, you simply restore your computer to an earlier snapshot. Within minutes, everything is back to normal. It's one of the reasons I feel comfortable recommending Linux Mint to beginners. Great performance, even on older computers. If your Windows laptop feels slow, Linux Mint might surprise you. It runs extremely well on older hardware. Many laptops that struggle with Windows suddenly feel much faster after installing Linux Mint. That means you may not even need to buy a new computer. You're in control. One thing many people love about Linux is freedom. Linux Mint doesn't constantly tell you what you can or can't do. You choose your browser. You choose your applications. You customize your desktop however you like. And you decide when your computer updates. Your computer belongs to you. Help is everywhere. If you ever run into a problem, don't worry. Linux Mint has one of the largest communities in the Linux world. There are thousands of YouTube tutorials, forums, articles, and helpful users willing to answer questions. Even better, Linux Mint is based on Ubuntu. That means most Ubuntu tutorials also work perfectly on Linux Mint. Finding help is usually just one Google search away. So, who should install Linux Mint? If you're moving from Windows? Yes. If you're a student? Yes. If you work from home? Yes. If you browse the internet, watch movies, write documents, or even do programming? Absolutely. Linux Mint is one of the safest recommendations you can make. There are many fantastic Linux distributions. Fedora, Ubuntu, Debian, OpenSUSE, Arch Linux. Every one of them has something unique to offer. But if someone asked me, I know absolutely nothing about Linux. Which one should I install? My answer would still be the same. Linux Mint Cinnamon Edition. It's stable, reliable, easy to learn, packed with useful features. And most importantly, it simply gets out of your way so you can focus on using your computer instead of fixing it. If you're thinking about trying Linux for the first time, Linux Mint is the place to start.